How can we contribute to society? There are the typical ways of donating money and volunteering. Today I will talk about the social responsibility of education, or how we can use our core competences and day jobs to have a positive impact on society. When I started as a student at Stockholm School of Economics, I was told that I was part of the elite of Sweden. I received an excellent education. I went on to do a SEMS master at HEC in Paris. I majored in finance and decided to pursue a career in investment banking, which was one of the most prestigious careers. I went on to work at UBS Corporate Finance in 1999 in London. I worked in the media division in mergers and acquisitions. I learned a lot. It was a hard work. I probably did about 3 years of a regular job in 1 year. I learned about financial modeling, teamwork, competition, work procedure. And it was quite a fantastic experience to be 24 years old and be sitting at a table with CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. Then I moved to Barcelona because my fiancé's father had a stroke, and I continued working in investment banking. I learned Spanish, and we had a comfortable life, but I felt something was missing. My true passion has always been nature. I'm a vegetarian. I stopped eating meat when I was 18 years old. And I started to think at this time, how can I actually use my competences that I have acquired through the education to have a positive impact on society? And I decided to do a PhD. And it was really because I wanted to study a topic in depth, learn more about it, and become an expert. And I thought this topic would be something related to sustainability or environmental issues, but I didn't know exactly what it was. It was natural for me to look into a PhD because my father had a PhD and my sister did. And I think I've always been a nerd, and doing a PhD made me an even bigger nerd, I've been told. So I decided to do a PhD at ESADE Business School in Barcelona. And I learned all about how to conduct rigorous academic research. I worked with fantastic professors and also a cohort of international students. Also at this time, I gave birth to my 2 children, Ingrid and Olo. And I had the privilege of working with a fantastic professor, Johanna Meyer, who's a real pioneer in the field of social entrepreneurship. And she was the one who introduced me to the topic of venture philanthropy, which is the concept that I've been working on ever since. Venture philanthropy is using practices from venture capital in the social sector and trying to deal with one of the big issues and problems that we see in the social sector, which is really that social sector organizations find it rather easy to get funding for their programs, but not at all easy to get funding for their core costs. And it creates a sort of a perverse situation where these organizations are supposed to have a great social impact and be run in a professional way, but they don't have the resources to do this. And they don't have the money to hire the right people. So venture philanthropy is trying to solve this problem by providing innovative social enterprises with a combination of funding, but also business skills, non-financial support, to help these organizations become more financially sustainable, organizationally resilient, and in the long term have a greater social impact. And also an interesting piece of information about venture philanthropy is that many people working in this sector have a financial background. So I felt quite at home there because I could speak their language, and basically because I had been working in investment banking before. I'll give you an example also from practice. There's a very interesting organization in Denmark that was set up in Denmark called the Specialists. And the idea there was originated from a social entrepreneur called Torkild Sonne, whose son has autism. And he was told that his son had a disability. But he realized that his son had actually amazing abilities. This is a map of Europe that his son drew when he was 7 years old out of memory. It's the index page of an atlas of Europe. And it has all the details. And he remembered all of that. So Torkel was saying then that perhaps these abilities that people with autism have can be used in a better way. So he set up an organization that is hiring people with autism and then selling their services to companies so that they're able to use their special abilities and have a dignified life and a work so they don't have to be a burden on society. So where does venture philanthropy come into this? Really, it's because of the funding issue. So an innovative social enterprise like Specialisterna needed funding, but also business skills to grow and become a stronger and more financially sustainable organization. The Danish Social Capital Fund provided Specialisterna with funding and also business skills, and they're now present in 14 countries. My passion and interest in venture philanthropy led me to actually start working in the sector myself after the PhD. So I started working at the European Venture Philanthropy Association, which is a network of venture philanthropy organizations and foundations that are funding social enterprises. They're based in Europe, but they're funding organizations all over the world. I started as the research director there in 2010, and I set up what is called the Knowledge Center, which is really the research function of EVPA. And I was using my research skills from the PhD to develop best practices and also start collecting data on a sector that really didn't have any data before. And it was also an entrepreneurial project because we had limited resources and we had basically a blank page to get started. And we started then also explaining to an external world what venture philanthropy looked like. And we were able to convince policymakers, including the European Commission, to take venture philanthropy seriously. They started allocating resources to the sector and also to EVPA as an organization. And I believe that with the research that we developed, we helped practitioners become more effective. And in this way, they were able to support more social enterprises in a better way. And in this sense, we had a social impact through this work. But it was more indirect that, for example, a social enterprise or a non-profit organization would have working directly with beneficiaries. And I realized through this experience that I could have most impact by using my core competences and my day job to influence society. Last year, I joined ESADE's faculty, and I'm now a professor in the Department of Strategy and General Management. And I'm teaching MBA students, master's students, undergraduate students courses in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and also how corporates can have a greater social impact. With our students, we're discussing how can you develop business models that are financially viable, but at the same time have a great social impact. And I'm seeing that an increasing number of students are interested in steering their careers towards a social impact goal. I would say that out of the students that I've been teaching, around 30% of them have come to me afterwards or during the course asking, how can I get engaged? And this is really encouraging. I would like to draw a parallel to the corporate world. If you think about corporate social responsibility, and this is a trend that has been emerging and it's sort of kind of a mature trend in the past sort of 20 to 30 years. And you see how corporates started engaging in social responsibility. It was more about, how can we convene our employees on Earth Day to plant a tree? Or how can we support philanthropic activities or put our logo at an event? And of course, these are all valuable activities. But more recently, what is happening is what is called shared value. So this is really about when companies are identifying a social need, they're seeing this as a business opportunity, and they're trying to understand how they, as an organization, can build on their assets and resources to actually have a social impact at the same time as creating a financial value. An example of this would be the French multinational company in the construction sector, Lafarge, who has developed bricks that are using local materials and are able to sell those bricks in populations that otherwise could not be able to afford them, and in a sustainable way. And this creates a business opportunity for Lafarge, but it also has a tremendous societal impact. And they were able to develop this first in Malawi and then in 8 other countries. And when you think about how corporates and banks are starting to use their core competences for social impact, I would like to think about how we as individuals can do this. How can we think about our core competence, our day jobs, and how we can produce a social impact with that? And if you think about the problems that we're facing today, climate change and many other issues, I think I would go further than just thinking about competences. It actually is your obligation to use your education responsibly. You might ask, how do I do this? And some of the students that have come to me asking, how can I get involved in an impact-centric career? They don't really know how to start. And they also have a fear, because they think, if I move into the social sector, perhaps I lose job market value. And I understand this fear. And I think that working in a non-profit organization is not for everyone. But I would also like to say that there are lots of other career options now that perhaps weren't available before. I will mention just a few of them. I've talked about venture philanthropy, but there are also related areas such as impact investing, microfinance, and also very innovative foundations where if you have a financial background, you can use your financing skills to have a social impact. There are also multilateral organizations, NGOs, and development finance institutions that are developing strategies that have a double bottom line, financial return, but also a social impact. We'll hear later today from Oxfam, which is a fantastic NGO that is developing impact investment funds, investing in social enterprises that are aligned with their mission as an NGO, but also complementing their other activities that are in terms of developing their own programs. We have socially advanced multinational companies and benefit corporations. I told you already about an example from Lafarge. And we have fantastic and numerous social entrepreneurial ventures. We will hear later on from Mescladis, which is one of those social enterprises based in Barcelona. And these organizations need business skills. They need people with a business background to help them grow and scale up. And I would also like to mention that the options are not limited just to business school students. I've seen numerous examples of other students in other professions that are starting to think about a social impact. Design students are developing prototypes for patients with Alzheimer's disease, helping improve their quality of life. Engineers in water treatment companies that are thinking about how can they use the excess energy that is produced from the water plant and sell this at a cheaper and more sustainable, in a more sustainable way to the local municipalities. Another example would be biology students working together with students in tourism to develop what is called hope spots in the oceans, where local marine ecosystems are regenerated. And this also creates an opportunity for ecotourism. The examples are numerous, but I would also like to come back to the business school. So what is the role of a business school in this development? Really, I think that there are 3 main activities. So first of all, research. Professors in the business schools, we can work to develop and deepen our knowledge on the issues related to social impact. We can do that by understanding the main research questions that are out there, so we have to connect also to practice. And we also need to build our own competences so that we can teach students in a better way. And we need to develop also courses that help students prepare for an impact-centric career. And finally, the connection with practice. So we need to understand the questions, but we also need to make sure that we're helping to channel students that are interested in impact to the best companies. ESADE is already strong on social impact, and it has many passionate professors that are working in these areas, and the Institute of Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship are working to develop new solutions. But of course we can do more, and we can do better. We're currently setting up a center for impact investing and venture philanthropy that will be working in these three areas to generate a social impact, but also complement the other activities that ESADE has already developed. Finally, I would like to say that when I graduated 20 years ago, almost, from Stockholm School of Economics, the options weren't what we have today. We didn't have that many options. And business school students now that are graduating, they really could think about how can they use their business skills and acumen in an impact-centric career. And also, how can you turn your regular job into a job that has a positive social impact? The timing is right, and you should seize the opportunity. Use your competences that you have gained through education to improve society. That is the social responsibility of education. Thank you.